Hello guys, again, here I am to recommend you another fanfic that you can read because it's awesome and beautiful. This story, like you can see in the thumbnail, is not a Harry Potter fanfic, rather a Teen Wolf fanfic. However, it is not completely separated from that, and I'm gonna explain that later. This fanfic is one of my favorites. I have been following it for a long time now, and I used this story as a part of my academic work. So I suffice to say that I read it a lot of times, and I can definitely say it's a really great story. I don't tire of it, it's incredible. To those of you who do not know what Teen Wolf is, it is a TV series from MTV that talks about a teen wolf, literally a teenage guy called Scott McCall got bitten by a werewolf and he becomes a teenage werewolf. So yeah, if you don't recognize it by the name, maybe by the actors. The actor Tyler Posey appears, Dylan O'Brien, who appears in Maze Runner and American Assassin, and also a new movie called, or movie or series called Love and Monsters, and also in the movie The Internship, Tyler Hoechlin, which you Superman and Supergirl, and he appeared in a small scene in 50 Shades of Grey, and in a movie like Can You Keep a Secret, I think it's called, and also Crystal Reed, who appeared in Gotham, the show about Gotham, you know, the city in DC universe. She appears as Sofia Falcon, also Colton Hayes, who appears in Arrow. And yes, maybe you can recognize it that way. I don't know. I hope you do. Okay, so the story is an article of our own. It is called Moonwalkers by the username of Twinkling Bao Fruit, and the summary goes as following. Styles had his entire 7 years of Hogwarts all planned out. Prank and prank hard. Woo Lydia Martin. Avoid tension and potions at all costs. Have crazy fun. Enter Brooding Werewolf to send this plan to the bottom of the Black Lake. Anyway, this story was published in 2014 and it was completed in 2017, and it has 68 chapters, and they're not exactly short, they are long. Okay, so reasons why you should definitely read Moonwalkers. Okay, number 1. This is a crossover of Teen Wolf and Harry Potter, as you can probably notice by the very obvious keywords that are used in the summary. So yes, you will see the entire universe of Teen Wolf, the characters, their story, inside the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Now, I have to clarify that none of the Harry Potter characters appear in the story. I think only Ollivander and Filch. I think they're the only ones that appear in the story, but none of the others. There's no Voldemort, there's no Harry Potter, there's no Grindelwald, nothing. So it is only the wizarding world, like the universe, the Hogwarts, the Ministry of Magic, Diagon Alley, Hogsmeade, all of that magical aspect, you know, the magic, the potions, the theory, even the books, I think. But nothing of the characters or the story of Harry Potter. So we will see the cast and, well, the characters of Teen Wolf live in the wizarding world. It's a really lovely thing to read about. So, number 2, the story is completely different, although Scott does get bitten. Peter is the alpha who bit him. Spoiler. But things don't flow as exactly the same as it does in the series. I think the only basis is that Scott is bitten by Peter. I think that's the only thing, because the rest of the show is completely different. Everything happens in a really different way, so you won't be seeing the series again. You will be reading like Scott getting bitten in a different way. The characters have different relationships. They have different backstories, not completely, just different backstories. So you don't see or will read Teen Wolf again. It's a different story, just completely new, and it is actually divided into different arcs. I think there are 3 arcs in the story. And the first one is, Scott getting bitten and getting used to his powers and figuring out who's the alpha and stuff like that. But the other 2 arcs are 2 different plots that are entirely different. And although, they are different, the story connects to the other arcs perfectly well. It goes in a really logical order, so you do not get lost, and you will read a completely new story, which is really deep. Number 3. To those of you who belong in the Teen Wolf fandom, you will be pleased to know that this story is Sterek, meaning that the main pairing is Styles and Derek. So that's great. Number 4. The story builds up that relationship really well. It's logical, and it doesn't happen like in the blink of an eye. It grows really well. Like, it's really well constructed. You can literally see the progress of them going from enemies to going to acquaintances to unlikely allies, then friends, and then lovers. So the author does a really great job to build up to it. So I will tell you that it's a slow build, so a really perfectly constructed slow build that will burn a lot. It's great. You should definitely read it because it's well constructed. Number 3. The author does an excellent job in adding her own information. She uses her own knowledge of mythology, both Greek and Roman mythology, and she uses other types of legends and myths. Like, she constructs her own legend. Like, the name Moonwalker is actually a magical being that I will not say what it is, so that you can discover it for yourself as you read it. But the Moonwalker is a magical being that she created herself, and she actually uses a mythology to explain it, and she writes up her own the history, and she uses potion recipes, and spells and rituals, and she uses a lot of extra information that is probably not available in the wizarding world since it doesn't exist. She invents it, so it really is a really great way to discover new kinds of magic, legends, stories. Number 4. The characters that appear are very well constructed. They are really the author is really faithful to the canon of the character. Like, she doesn't go out of character at all. The author does a really great job to portray their personalities. So it's a great way to see the characters. You won't be like, that's not really what Lydia would say. No, it's all perfectly in character. You can actually see really deep stuff that the author includes in her story. Like, you see not only like a perfect Allison, you see like a dark Allison and a dark Lydia and a dark Styles, and a different characterization that is actually really logical to the character. And the way she actually sorted each of the characters to their houses is really, really unique. So that's great. Number 5, which is based on the 4th. The characters have different introductions to the story. They are not presented to us in the same way as in the series. Actually, some of them have different roles, I guess. and you actually see characters that we love, for example Boyd, Erika, Danny, Malia if you like Malia, Kira, but she doesn't do it the same way as in the series. She actually used a really original way to use them in the story there. It's a great story. Number 6, if you love the Hales, then you will be pleased to know that not all of the Hales die like in the series. Well, at least there's an extra Hale that many love, which is Laura Hale, and she appears in the story and she's alive and great. So it is great because that means that Derek is not a complete tragedy. The Hales actually behave in a really different manner. They have a bond, a better bond to say. Actually, Cora and Derek are much closer than in the series, and they make many more appearances in the story. They're actually kind of like the main characters. So yes, and actually we will see more of Cora Hill. She will be a character that you will love. Number 7, the author wrote the profiles, the character profiles of the story, so that you can get familiarized with the characters and why they are in the house they are, their traits, their want, their hobbies, and curious facts, stuff like that. So the author actually gives you her point of view of how she sees the characters, which is great. Those are all the reasons that I had for you to read the Moonwalkers story. And first of all, you shouldn't get confused with Moonwalkers, the movie where Rupert Grint appears, nor the fandom of Michael Jackson, which is also called Moonwalkers. No, Moonwalkers is, like I said, a magical being that the author created. I do have one piece of bad news for this story. Though it does have 68 chapters, the author abandoned the story. Don't go yet. Give it a chance, give it a shot, take a leap in reading the story, because even though it is abandoned, the author made sure to leave an outline of what was going to happen and how it was going to end, so that way you won't be left unsatisfied with the story, because you will know what will happen after the story stops and how it will end, though you won't see it in a narrative form, but you know what will happen. So that's a bittersweet kind of pointer. Please give it a shot, read it. It's one of my favorite stories. Like I said, I loved it so much that I used it for an academic work. So I really recommend you guys to read this story because it's great. It has really interesting arcs. The characters are really well played out. The interaction of the Teen Wolf universe and the wizarding world of Harry Potter interact in a really creative and beautiful way. You will love it. You will experience the whole magical world and be able to feel part of the story. It's great. And even the enemies, the villains, are so well constructed that you don't even like when you see their side of the story, because there are some chapters that do show like their point of view and even show their backstory, so that you can understand why they're doing what they're doing. You can understand the reason why they chose that method, like why do all of this. Like you understand everything and you're like, you know what, I understand you. I don't justify it, but I understand it. And it's great because those kinds of villains are them. I think those are really great villains because you can actually kind of identify you can identify with them, and you don't completely hate them because you see their side and you feel for them, like, oh man, that's awful. And but of course, maybe you would do the same thing, or maybe you would do the opposite, or I don't know what you would do, but you see that part and you feel for the characters, like you see who they are and you see what they suffered. You will love it. And thank you for watching my reasons why you should read.